We are going to look at the 5 things you need to start streaming, and we're going to do that right now. In the last video in this series, we looked at 5 top tips to think about when you start streaming. For this video, we're looking at 5 pieces of equipment you're going to need to make that dream a reality. We're going to be looking at cameras, microphones, capture cards, lighting, and a second screen. So, cameras. Why do we need that when we're streaming? Well, most people come to a stream to look at the game, but they also stick around for the person. So if they can't see your face, you might be putting yourself at a disadvantage. There are plenty of successful streamers out there who don't use a camera, but they are kind of contrary to the rule. The vast majority of streamers will have a camera so the viewers can see what you're doing. With cameras, you want to get the clearest output possible. You want at least 1080p. It doesn't mean that you're going to be streaming at that, because that does take up a lot of bandwidth, but you want the initial image that you're producing to be as clear as possible. Make sure it's a USB webcam. Vast majority are, but there will be differences out there. You don't need to spend an absolute fortune. I'm using this mid-range Logitech one at the moment. It gives me 1080p output, so it's nice and crystal clear. Okay, now we've got cameras out of the way, we need to start thinking about sound and how people are going to hear you on the stream. Now, most webcams will have some sort of microphone built in, and that might be fine at first, but you're going to quickly realise that the sound quality on something so small isn't going to be good. And that's where we're coming to getting a dedicated microphone, so you can have your voice nice and clear when you're doing what you need to do. I use this one, it's a Rode mic. We want the microphone to be as close as possible to our mouths, but not so in front of it that it covers up our faces. When I stream it, it's about a foot or so away from me, and that's nice and clear. As long as you're speaking clearly, you'll get a nice clear message coming through. If you have it too far away, it will sound far away. Microphones are very tactile pieces of equipment. The closer they are, the clearer sound you can have, and you can lower the volume as you see fit. And again, make sure you get a USB one, unless you want to start spending extra for XLRs and professional grade equipment microphones. A USB microphone should be okay. The third thing we need to be thinking about is how we're going to be capturing our game content. If you're using a console like a Switch or a PS4 or an Xbox, you're definitely going to need a capture card. Now, the great thing about a capture card is you can plug pretty much any device into it, even things like Blu-ray players and DVD players to capture images from. The most popular capture cards are Elgato, and the more modern ones only have HDMI in. Now, being that this is a retro channel and I want to be able to stream retro consoles, I made sure I get a different kind of capture card to the latest Elgato one. The one I have was one that they made a few years ago, which has a composite and component input. Just for simple gaming, like getting your SNES or your Mega Drive onto your stream, you can use the slightly older Elgato card. Make sure that you've got the correct lead with it so you can plug in your component cables or composite cables as you go along. Now, you can skip a capture card altogether if you're just using your PC to stream. Most streaming softwares will enable you just to capture what your PC is producing. So sometimes I might be streaming something like an emulator or a game from my PC collection. You don't need the capture card for that. Okay, so now that we've got our camera set up and we've got our microphone going so we can be heard and seen on the stream, and we've got the ability now to capture our video game, what next do we need to think about? You're going to need to think about lighting. Now, when we think about lighting, we're not talking about massive big photographic lighting that costs hundreds of pounds. It can be really simple. It can be something like this, an extremely simple clip-on light that just plugs in and shines on you. It can be even more simple. I sometimes use my phone torch just to shine down on myself, just to give a little bit of light. You want yourself as the streamer to be exposed to as much light as possible. So being in a room full of light is really important. If you don't, the images will come out dull and it'll be hard to make out all those excitements and all those ahs and airs as you're playing the game. So what's the very last thing that we need to think about if we're going to start streaming? Well, it's going to be the ability to actually interact with your stream. Now, what do I mean by that? The most important thing is we can see when people are chatting to us. If we can't see when people are chatting to us, we can't engage with them and they'll just get bored and turn off because it seems like you're ignoring them. So you need to have a second screen. I use this very simple Chromebook and it can sit right next to me on my stream. So if I was streaming right now, I'd have it here next to me and I can see everything that's going on the screen here. Now, it might be that your second screen is a second PC monitor, and that's fine as well. Just as long as we can see our stream, we can see what's going on, and we can see our chat room, we're on to a winner. Well, they're the 5 basic items you need just to get yourself streaming. If you missed my last video, check out my 5 top streaming tips for new streamers, and in the next video, we're going to be looking at some software that you might want to use when you're streaming. I've been Retro Faith. Thanks for watching. Keep it retro.